We'll start with prayer. I'll ask Roland Pena, if he would, to open us in prayer, and then we will do our pledge. Ask you to stand as you are able.
Heavenly Father, we come to you this day. Father, it's a beautiful day, and we rejoice and we're glad in it, Father. We thank you so much for this city, Father, and this community and the people that are in it, Father. May you place your hand upon us, Father, and may we receive your favor. And today, Father, as we discuss and look at the budget, Father, and the decisions that need to be made, Father, may you provide direction. Father, may you give wisdom to everyone here today, Father, both on the council as well as the staff members that are here. Father, give us the way. Father, show us the way. We thank you, Lord. We love you, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Work session agenda. All matters listed under the work session agenda are presented for discussion and future planning purposes only. No administrative or regulatory action will be taken by the council. Public comment will not be accepted during the work session agenda. So there's a little change this morning in our work session agenda than the regular agendas that we have in our council meeting. We will start with A, which is discussion and consideration of matters regarding the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget preparation, including, but not limited to, number 1, major funds, revenue, and expenditures, number 2, council priorities and goals, and number 3, other items needing council direction. And I guess this would be an excellent time to turn it over to Morgan Chegwidden and go.
Good morning. Thank y'all. We're going to work through some items today. A lot of this has been in your background in the Friday packets, but we wanted the opportunity to be able to dialogue with key staff.
No. The speakers aren't working at this point.
No tiene. I will motion to adjourn. We don't have any speakers.
Is that better? No, not yet.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
Okay.
Oh.
We're live? Okay. So, as I mentioned, there's Anthony, they're still having trouble hearing up here.
Trabajo.
Okay. So, one of the things we've talked about is that we're facing some budget issues this year. We're going to talk about each of those today. We want to hit on the major funds and the budget process and the council priorities. That's really we wanted to spend our focus today. Our major items that we'll be working through have been communicated to y'all in a Friday packet, but we do have some updates, and we did want the opportunity for dialogue between amongst yourselves and between staff and key folks are here available to speak if we get into that level of detail. So we wanted to point out, of course, the budget process. We've been over this. There are a few changes that we made this year. I think it made for a better and more streamlined budget process. We're getting feedback from directors and managers that they had more opportunity this year. And so even though we're facing uncertain economic times, the process as a whole is ever improving. And so in March, of course, budget staff started with getting the budget manual out and getting that information out with training and opportunities for directors and managers. We got those revenue estimates. And as you'll see when we go through the major funds, which are any operating budgets over $1 million, they're pretty solid. We're going to point out that we have some pretty healthy revenue estimates, items that we're confident in. As we moved into expense estimates, we had the city manager reviews, we had finance reviews, so that was a greater level of detail for the directors and managers, just to make sure we dotted our I's, we crossed our T's, we got everything in there. And then, of course, we started talking to y'all in Friday packets in June. And as we move forward, of course, we have today's workshop, and then starting at next week's council meeting, we'll have some public hearings related to the tax code and local government code, just to make sure we're compliant with truth and taxation. And so we're going to move forward and introduce both the budget and the tax levy in September. So that's what we have coming up. As I mentioned, we wanted to go over the major funds, revenue, and expenditures. I'll cover the general fund and a few key other folks, but I wanted to have the opportunity for certain directors to be able to come up and speak to their funds directly. I wanted them to have the opportunity to dialogue with y'all and have that feedback. And so, of course, this includes funds like the general fund, the state office building fund, and Fort Concho funds, airport fund, et cetera. So. We'll start with the general fund. We did have an update as of yesterday because of the new sales tax report. And so what's in your background is slightly higher because we did get some bad news yesterday that the sales tax was still down August over August under by about 9%. And so with that, we just wanted to have, a greater confidence in what we were projecting into fiscal year 17. So I'll get to that in just a second, but we've updated the taxes portion to be budgeted at $56.3 million. That's a reduction from last year's original budget of $290,000, and there are a lot of moving parts in there. I'll get to that in just a second. But then other revenues, largely franchise fees and items of that sort, are up, and so we have other revenues up about $550,000. So total revenue proposed for the general fund of $69,870,000. To talk about sales tax briefly, we had some abnormal growth in 2014 and 2015, abnormally high growth, and so we were still conservative with our budget estimates. We thought, we ended fiscal year 15 right at high $18 million, and we proposed a 1.5% increase into the 2016 budget. And I'm sure, and as we've discussed at strategic planning, that we're just not making that. And so we're projecting that we're going to have we already year to date have a deficit of $2 million. And what I mean by that is our original budget isn't going to make. Daniel made a commitment to y'all, and we've held the line on that revenues will still will manage expenses and to be able to fund that deficit, and we're on track to do that. Yesterday we got, as I mentioned, we got sales tax figures in, and you'll see. And I'm sorry, this slide doesn't update it, but you'll see that 2016 is this black line, and we were hoping, early on, we were trending right in line with 2014. And so we were doing pretty well to be able to say, well, at least 2014, we can live within our means on that a couple years ago. But then once you started to see that 2014 growth, we can't compete with that. And so we've drilled down into the detail to be able to know what all is driving that. I'll tell you the underlying economy in San Angelo still appears to be strong. Our number of tax payers, sales tax payers, is up. That means we're growing in brick and mortar retailers, in online sales out of San Angelo, and that's good. That's good news. But we're just seeing that those receipts are down, and we're seeing key industries like lumber yards and home improvement are down quite a bit. And so, there are a lot of things driving this, and we're just cautious moving forward. So as a result of that, we've proposed $17.2 million as the budget for fiscal year 17. That's a $2 million reduction from fiscal year 16's original budget, but those are the figures we're confident in. So, for example, we're projecting that fiscal year 15 will end the year at $16.7 million. And of course that's something that we're still sharpening our pencil on, still getting those figures on. But if you apply a 3% growth rate to that, which, because we're confident that we're near the bottom, that this has got to turn around really quickly, that we would be able to budget $17.2 million into fiscal year 17. We looked at a 20-plus year average increase for San Angelo. We went back to the 80s for our sales tax receipts, and on average, we've had a growth of 4.8%. And so we certainly didn't want to lean on it that hard, but 3% as the nation is growing and the economy in the state is really healthy, we thought that we could achieve that. The flip side of the general fund, of course, is the amount we have funded through our property tax. As I mentioned, our sales tax is down. We're proposing it down from original budget about $2 million. Our property tax grew by about 3.8%. And so some amount of that was due to new property added to the tax roll, and then the remainder of that was due to reappraisals. We have had a healthy housing market in San Angelo, and the appraisal district is taxed by the state to make sure that our appraisals are within market. And so our fiscal year 17 certified value came in at $4.7 billion. That's a 3.8% increase from last year's certified value. So that yields about $1.3 million in marginal revenue for fiscal year 17. So as you can see, the sales tax is down $2 million, but the property tax is up $1.3 million, and so that created a unique circumstance moving into funding this year's budget. You'll see in general fund, we tried to maintain expenditures everywhere that we could. Personnel is largely flat at $50,400,000. Operating budgets largely flat at $18,600,000, and capital very little change there at $520,000. So revenue over expenditures for the general fund at $322,000. I will get into some detail with that, what opportunities we have to allocate that marginal revenue and address council priorities or the pressing items before you. The next fund to discuss is the State Office Building Fund. It is a operating fund in excess of $1 million. Bob Bluehart couldn't be here today. He had a previous engagement, but he authorized me to speak on his behalf. I do want to point out that the rent, so total revenue for the State Office Building Fund is right at $1.2 million. As you can see, that those rents that are at those facilities are built in with a small escalation each year, so we continue to see that. Also, there's an other revenue item that increased by about $50,000. That's simply due to reimbursements that occur. For example, occasionally tenants ask for special work to be done to their suite, and they'll say, we'll pay for it, but can you move this wall, or can you whatever? And so you'll see an increase in revenue there, but a corresponding increase in their expenses as well by that $50,000. So simply a pass-through for the accounting of all of that. And the State Office Building Fund is budgeted revenue equal expenditures, so $0 to be added to their fund balance. The next fund is the Airport Fund. I will let Mr. Elgazabal speak about that specifically.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Luis Elgazabal, your Airport Director. Looking at the budget for next year for the airport, we are looking a little bit down in revenues, but for the past 9 years, our budget has been flat. We live within our means, so I wasn't going to change it again for 17. So revenues are expected to be down, primarily in fuel sales and leasing. And for expenditures, we're down also almost 119,000, and we've made some serious cuts in the operating budget for next year, primarily in maintenance, leaving some full-time positions vacant, and adjusting our operating accordingly. Again, we live within our means, and I'm submitting that for you. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Luis, you continue operating without funds from the general fund, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And we're submitting that again.
Very good.
And I'll be here throughout if you have any questions.
Not immediate, but future plans to go for a grant for a new tower?
No, not for a new tower, ma'am. We will have grants coming up for next year for the work that's being designed this year.
Such as parking area possibly?
For next year, we'll be looking at the projects that you approved August 2nd, which will be taxiways, improvements, and pavement strength. And we're looking at discretionary money over $3 million.
Looking good.
Again, I'll be here throughout if you have any questions.
Just want to tell Luis my deepest appreciation. I know that revenues have been back quite a bit. They've dropped off quite a bit. But what you've done with expenditures, you're to be commended. We appreciate your efforts, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Again, 9 years of being in the black, we want to remain the same.
Thank you, Louis.
The next fund for discussion is the solid waste fund. I know that we've spent a lot of time talking about solid waste operations, and I think we're pretty up to date with what's going on with that. The user fees are proposed a slight increase at $949,000. Other revenue is at $620,000. That's a reduction of $680,000, and that's not due to less money occurring in the operations. It's simply due to a change in accounting of there's revenue that actually belongs to the outside vendor that isn't recorded for us. And so we had amended that in the fiscal year 16 budget to get that corrected, and now we're adopting the fiscal year 17 budget in the correct way. And so you'll see a corresponding decrease in operations. So the total expenditures for the solid waste funds are proposed right at $1 million. We're proposing to add $570,000 to the fund balance. The intent there is that there is going to be a need for future permitting and future landfill obligations in the next 7 to 8 years, and so their aim is to increase that by to $5.5 million over that time. And so by adopting the budget revenue over expenditures, that will contribute to that cause. The next fund for consideration is the stormwater fund, and I'll let Shane speak to that one.
Not a lot of change in the stormwater fund. It's staying fairly even. We've seen a little bit of growth, but of course, as time goes on, we have not increased our fees that we have established for the stormwater fund. So, as the cost of doing business goes up, the growth has kind of kept us even in that. We are starting to see some more expenditures. So again, looking forward, we're really not seeing anything in the next couple of years that we'll need to address. We're using our cushion for our large projects to eat up any additional expenses that we're seeing currently right now. So again, not a whole lot of anything exciting going on today in stormwater. Now, I think everybody has, I just kind of want to touch briefly so we can start thinking about the future in stormwater. The midterm census came out, and as everybody knows, they projected the city of San Angelo's over 100,000. Unfortunately, what that does to us is that puts us into the next tier that we're going to have to step up. We're going to have to step up the things that we're doing for our water quality. And again, this fund, and just I want to make sure everybody understands, this fund is for water quality, for the city of San Angelo to improve the quality of water that's running into our river. It's not about quantity. It's not about flooding issues. It's about quality issues, and about how we go about making sure that the water that's running off our streets and in our storm drains is cleaner as it goes into the river and then into our lakes. And so, but when we get into that next tier, and of course this is an unfunded federal mandate that came down to the state, and then from the state down to local governments. And so, as we move forward, we're going to be bumped into that next tier. Now, we visited with the officials at TCEQ, and so far they're saying that unless there's some major rule change coming down from the feds or from the state through the legislative session, that we're not going to have to do anything different on our current MS4 permit, which in our current permit is good through 2019, and so that's good. So that means that we're not going to have to scramble and start doing more and different things between now and 2019. There's also a possibility that as we go into the next census count, the official census count in 2020, depending on kind of what those numbers look like, you know, there could be some leniency as well too. As our next permit's due in 2019, not 2020, we may, I don't know. We'll have to kind of see what it looks like. But again, as we move into the future, there will be more things that we're going to be required to do, being that we have bumped over that next mark. And one thing too that I want to also let everybody know is as we're moving forward in this, you know, we haven't raised rates since the inception of the program, and of course, you know, expenses do keep going up. Backhoes, for example, yellow iron has increased anywhere from 50% to 100% since the inception of stormwater. And again, we have not raised fees, but our expenses do keep going up. And so at some point in time, we will have to look at a fee increase, but we're not proposing one this year. We're not foreseeing one next year. And so we just kind of let everything kind of toe the line right now and kind of run smooth. Again, you can see from revenues, we're holding fairly steady. Expenses, again, holding fairly steady as well, too. So we're not seeing anything major or drastic in this fund.
I have a question. You're not foreseeing any request for a fee increase. How do you feel about a decrease?
Right now we're holding even and steady with our what we're doing and with our maintenance activities that we're performing right now. If we decrease decrease the fee, we would have to we'd have a hard time fulfilling our duties, or what, I'm trying to think of the right word, but our duties that we're required to perform under our MS4 permit.
Okay, then let me put it to you this way. Is there any viable reason that you would entertain sitting down with members of the San Angelo Independent School District to see if their school district properties, their stormwater fees could be decreased somewhat? They're scrambling, they're trying to find more money for teachers' pay, and they're looking at, they pay $35,000 a month per property school district, and they wondered if there was a little wiggle room in there. And I told them all I could do is ask. I truly did not know what it would do to the budget.
When,
$5,000 per school is what they pay for storm?
no, I mean, it can be the highest commercial that we have is only $500.
Included their whole
I think
trash bill with storm, but he was saying that was the bill per school. I talked to Tim Archer, so.
I would have to sit down, because from a stormwater's perspective, I mean, a commercial property, the largest commercial property out there can only be billed $500 a month. So based on our tier structure. And so I would have to sit down with them and see exactly what they're looking at and what they have.
He was very, very open. If someone could talk to him, I told him I certainly wasn't educated enough in the fees and what it was, that I would be happy to mention it this morning and see if we could get a little conversation going, so maybe they could understand better what they're billing and we could understand better how they're requesting help to keep monies in San Angelo for more teachers.
We can. I'll be glad to sit down with Tim or any of the school administration at any time they'd like to, and kind of go through this. Any changes in that fee structure would have to come from council. It would be, I mean, y'all would have to create a special San Angelo ISD school district fee structure. But as it stands right now, they're charged the exact same fees that every other commercial property in San Angelo is charged.
Well, I'm not as receptive about it as maybe some people are, but because the school district is very high on their property tax, and of course we get slammed here at City Council for our taxes, which includes county, city, and the school district. But it's worth sitting down and talking to them and see, you know, just a little bit of time. So maybe afterwards you and I could talk about it and see if we could have a discussion with them. But they're doing their budgets and we're doing our budgets right now.
Okay, glad to.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding stormwater?
Yeah. Shane, go ahead, Bill. Shane, one of the things, and I know we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years, we are at that threshold of 100,000. And I think we're really not that far from planning out 3 years from now as we look at what that next census is going to be in 2020. Bottom line is, we really kind of think, even though we're not going to do anything in 17, we really need to have some discussion about what's that increase going to do to your department. What kind of manpower change is that going to, staffing change is that going to make, and what's that increase going to look like from a dollars and cents standpoint as we go forward? Because we really need to be preparing the citizens if, for whatever reason, we have to look at increasing the stormwater fund. And it's easy to talk about it. It's 3 years down the road. But believe it or not, that's closer than most of us want to think about. So we really need to do some preparation so that this council and the citizens know exactly what we intend to do for future budget years.
We've already started looking into that. We were before we had actually had those conversations with the state. We were concerned that as the midterm census came out and it did say that we're going to be over 100,000, that they may ask us to revise our MS4 permit. Of course, they did not, and so we've already started looking at those possibilities of what that next level is going to take, what we're looking at, and so our staff is already going through. We're already trying to come up with some of those budgetary numbers, so we'll know as we move forward, and we can refine that and bring it to you in a more concise package.
Bill?
We currently have 6 street sweepers in our pool of street sweepers. We keep, basically there's 5 of them that run routes, and of course the biggest issue with street sweepers are there's a lot of moving parts on those. So they go down quite often, and so we're constantly rotating one in there as a spare and a backup. But we have 5 of them that actually are running district routes right now and trying to keep up with the sweeping around town. We also do downtown sweeping as well, since it's right there at the river, and most of that feeds in the river. So we actually have a special route for one of the sweepers, which is the downtown route, which gets swept a lot more often than the rest of town, just simply because of all the activity downtown with all the bars and all the other establishments downtown. We see quite a bit of ground litter in the mornings down there, especially over the weekends. So we run downtown a little harder.
Okay. Last fall, after the leaves fell in our neighborhood, I didn't see a street sweeper come around to clean up the leaves, and we're not far from the river. And that when it rains, that goes down into the drains and ends up in the river. All those leaves and that.
Yes, sir. It takes approximately, because of the speed at which a street sweeper can sweep and do any good, it takes approximately, depending on the size of the district and the number of streets, curb miles that we have in each district, it takes approximately 75 to 90 days for us to get through each district with one sweeper. So it takes a while for us to hit every street in every district. It's not one of those that we can we're in there once a week or once every 2 weeks. It's a long process to get those sweepers entirely through a district. And so we try, and especially we'll even run the guys, we'll start running the guys overtime during those times of years where we do see leaf fall and things like that, to try to speed that process up.
Okay. Well, couldn't you make the neighborhoods that are around the river a higher priority?
Yes, sir, we can, and it's one of those areas that we try to concentrate in those areas more than we do some of the other parts of town. But again, when we start looking at everything that's flowing into the Arroyo and all that, it's all making it downstream, and so the Arroyo, of course, goes all the way through town as well too. So, but again, we try to push as hard and fast as we can, especially in those times of year where we do see leaf fall. Or we do see heavier litters from when pecan trees and oak trees go to tasseling as well too.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Thanks, Shane.
Next fund up for discussion is the water and wastewater funds. We are going to drill down into a great level of detail shortly when we talk about the council priorities. And so for this one, I'll just touch on that we are proposing a budget that's in line with the rate study that we just completed. And so sales are projected at $22.1 million, which is about a $2 million increase. Expenditures are proposed at $22.8 million, and so revenue over expenditures are proposed at $2,720,000. That is the planned contribution to the fund balance to right the ship, so to speak. This does not get us towards this does not complete the task to getting us to our fund balance goal, but it does help and get us in the right direction. You'll see there that operations has a decrease of about $2 million, and that's largely due to the debt service that is now being funded through the Development Corporation instead of out of 260, which was adopted in the plan as a way to offer some relief to the water users. In the wastewater fund, again, in accordance with the rate plan that was approved by the council earlier this year, the charges are proposed at $12.1 million, about a $2.7 million increase for total revenue of $12,450,000. The expenditures are proposed at $11,250,000. You'll see the majority of that increase went into capital, which was an item we knew was lacking in prior years' budgets, and we needed to go ahead and ramp up what we're doing in the way of capital investment for our infrastructure in the wastewater fund. So the revenue over expenditure for the wastewater fund is proposed at almost $1,200,000. And again, that is a contribution to the fund balance, a planned amount, does not fully fund where we know we need to be, but is a step in the right direction and moving forward exactly with what the rate plan proposed. For the civic events fund, Mr. Walker is here to speak on it. I did just want to touch briefly on hotel occupancy tax before he joined us. We had budgeted in 2016 $2.3 million in hotel occupancy tax. But of course, occupancy is down and rates are down, and they're down more than we planned. The $2.3 million was a reduction from prior years, but it's down even more. And so we've reduced it to $1,857,000. That's about a $400,000 decrease. And we're still watching it very closely. Of course, we're committed to watching this as we are the sales tax, that we can still meet our obligations, that we can still fund all the areas that get funded from the hotel occupancy tax. And so with a revenue budget of $1,857,000, we can maintain all current obligations, and we will be, keeping the council abreast of any changes in that. And I will let Mr. Walker speak to the other revenue here as well as his expenses.
Good morning, this is Sidney Walker, Civic Events Manager for the City of San Angelo. Of course, we're down in hot tax right now as well. We may not even meet our budget currently for what we have right now, but also, as you know, many of the oil companies do not have their meetings anymore over here at the convention center, and so right now we're at a downfall right now. We're just having the meetings in the week, and so right now we're trying to work towards getting more events, of course, here in the city of San Angelo and things that will be able to take the place of that for right now as well. Few of the items that we actually have as well, as you can tell, she said hotel occupancy tax is down. On our personnel as well, operations as well as is going up, and our capital expenditures as well. A few things that I must bring up that for the convention center that we actually need done over here that I'll be bringing to council pretty soon is our sewer line. We do need to have, that's something that's on my priority list to bring to you all right now. Is we're having sewer line issues over here at the convention center, and that is a huge issue for us. We're taking precaution measurements actually right now, and at this point with us taking those measurements right now, we're actually spending a lot more than what we need to in our budget as well. Other issues that we're actually having too as well is the roofing over here. We're having major leaks and issues over here as well. As you can tell, there's issues in this room right here as well as in our main lobby too as well. Other issues that we have is at the Coliseum. With many of the items, the VIP room needs work done, and I'm not saying this year that we need to look at it, but in the next few years, every year that we get further along, we're missing the opportunity of taking care of the matters. Over there as well at the Coliseum, we have door replacements that we need to look at, as well as climate control for the Foster Communications Coliseum. Also, one of our ADA lifts is out as well at the Coliseum, as well as needing chairs for our river stage right now too.
Why is it out,
Which one, ma'am?
the Coliseum?
The ADA lift. Actually, one of our ADA lifts is actually currently working right now, but just one of the other ones, and we just do not have the money in our budget to be able to fix it right now. It's about $5,000 for the fix.
You're not used that much, but just, was it malicious damage or what type of?
I think it's just worn down, ma'am.
Okay.
And it's just non-operational right now. So what we're having to do is actually have staffing help out the ones that need assistance, since that is down for us right now.
All of those items are going to be coming. Sid's going to be bringing those in the September for a large review of those items as a whole. This will be in that package of things that need to be done.
There's many of other items as well that has came from our Civic Events Advisory Board that we need to bring to council to be able to start discussing and figuring out what we're going to do in the next few years to fix these matters and make sure that we can keep business booming at the Convention Center and Coliseum for sure.
Do you have a copy, or do you utilize the copy of the facilities report that was done, what, about 7 years ago? On all of the facilities that you're over and what was needed then, and compare it as to needed now, and if our maintenance dollars that we've appropriated or put it on the side, has it been enough to?
Our maintenance dollars are not covering our needs.
As far as that study, a lot of those things that were recommended at the time were accomplished. This building, various others. So it focused a lot on larger things, the Coliseum roof. We've accomplished a lot of those. Some of these are more the general maintenance now that just goes with a building, and that study did not get into those so much as it was looking at what are the pressing needs that we need to do now. So this is sort of an effort to follow up on that study, saying, okay, we did all these things, but that doesn't stop. We still have all these general maintenance items that we have to address just with the age and wear and tear of a building.
So, any other questions?
Questions? Thank you, Sidney.
The next fund before you today is the Fort Concho Fund, and as I mentioned, Mr. Bluehart gave me some notes to speak on his behalf. I think the important thing to note in the Fort Concho Fund is they continue to have a healthy revenue stream. About a third of their $1 million budget is from rent from the state office building by design, and then about a third is from taxes, general fund tax support and hotel occupancy tax support, and then the remaining third is from program income, so venue rentals, special event income, attendance fees, all of that. And so we're proud of the performance of this fund. We did budget it flat. I'm sorry, not flat, but revenue equal expenditures at $1,017,000, and so they continue to have healthy experience in their fund. They do, of course, have looming capital needs. I do want to point out that in civic events, we're certainly seeing a reduction in the rental income. In Fort Concho, it's dissimilar. It's more, civic events uses a lot of business to occupy this building and to pay venue rental. For Fort Concho, of course, it's more recreational, it's more families, and so we're continuing to see that strong. So with that, we're not quite an hour in, but this is a good stopping point if the council does desire a break. This is a kind of a natural break in the presentation. We can certainly surge ahead if it's your pleasure.
Let's take about 15 then. And Ms. Morgan, if I might, before we get started, I've spoken to a couple of the council members. We know that our revenue is way down. We know that we don't have the money to do what we need to do. We know that we're going to have to cut this budget. Instead of going through all of this, what we want and what we desire, if the council will back me up on this, I'd like to just cut to the chase on this and tell us what we need to do to balance this budget, how we need to handle this, and when we have a little extra money, then we can look at a lot of the things we would like to do. But we're not going to be able to do them this year. And Marty, you agree with me?
Yes.
Lucy, you agree with me? Anybody else agree with me? Harry?
Yes and no.
Well, I got 4 that says they agree. So let's cut to the chase on this and get this over with, please.
Yes, sir, absolutely. After the council priorities, we were going to drill down into the general fund budget. And so, as we discussed on the review of major funds, the revenue over expenditures for the general fund is $322,946. Of course, it was our intent to be able to fund the city's obligation as it relates to meet and confer. But the cost of that this year would be $635,000. So to be able to fully fund that contract obligation would take us into the hole, which of course we wouldn't be able to do. One of the things we were going to talk about is that there was a request to expand the service of streets. We're just going to plug in a goose egg there, simply that we're going to maintain the level of street performance and street service. We're not going to increase it, though, this year because of the economic climate. Unfortunately, I'm just going to temporarily take that out there for salaries. We'll come back to that. There also were department requests regarding furthering the council goal for the development process. Mr. James, of course, is fully aware of where we are on that and knows that we maybe need to skip this year as far as funding the requests related to that. Health insurance, although not a council goal, an item for consideration as our health insurance premiums grow. Again, let's skip that and come back to it. Under department requests, we did have some have-to items, so to speak, as identified by city management and finance staff. That totaled about $76,000. Just with the latest of where we are on sales tax, we would just recommend that those be researched to be funded another way, or what we can do to not fund them in the original budget, and so we would recommend a zero there as well. So to get into, that leaves you. So again, we're leaving with the $322,000 available for the council's direction. One thing we had talked about, and Ms. Marley's on standby to be able to speak, is that there will probably be some cost associated with if the meet and confer goes back to the police officers for a vote for that. And
Can you make clear that this 322 does not include any raises? No raises in this. And we have a contract, a meet and confer contract, which says we must give raises to those meet and confer employees. And that
correct.
Value is how much again?
$635,000.
Can you plug that in again so we can see what that looks like? That is raises according to that contract for those police department employees under that contract. Only. That doesn't include fire or other, public works, those employees also.
If I remember this meet and confer agreement that we made, is that they could make the request and we could approve them, but it all depended on if we had the money to fund it. So we have the authority at council to fund what we're able to fund. Now, if I can remember the agreement that we had on meet and confer, the very last line was, if council can afford it.
That's a good point, and I think Ms. Marley can speak to what your options are related to that and what those ramifications are.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, City Manager. In our contract, there is a funding obligation section, and you are correct. We follow the Texas Constitution guidelines. It says that we cannot we can only use funds that are available. Therefore, we cannot use money that we don't have. You cannot appropriate from a future year. So you're correct in that. And if, if we cannot meet our funding obligations and if the police department does not confer and agree with that, then the meet and confer document becomes null and void.
I'm not trying to knock salaries down, but we are dealing with X amount of money and we can't spend X plus. So we're all going to have to live within our budget. We've got to find a way to do so.
And so I think our desire would be to take it back to the police officers to hold a vote to be able to just postpone the existing contract. And there may be a cost associated with that.
Rather than go through the detail of how that might go, I think what we'd like is direction from council to open that discussion with them. Is that right, Lisa? That may or may not require a vote by then, so I don't know that we would want to commit to anything.
Sure. I do think it's important to note that we may need to plug in an amount under salaries of this $322,000 related to opportunities the council has. We did look at, if we did an across-the-board raise or a one-time stipend or something like that. Just for reference, what does $322,000 buy us? $322,000 does not even fund a 1% raise for the general fund. It would fund about a 0.07% pay raise, and so that would be a
0.7 or 0.07? 7/100ths?
Under 1%.
7/10 of a percent?
0.7.
Or 7/100ths of a percent?
Okay. We also talked about that there may be an opportunity to throw an amount at the health insurance plan. We know that, if we give a small amount in pay increases, that would only be offset by a larger increase in the employee's contribution to the premiums for health insurance. And so that's a balancing act of being able to know that the council's goal is to further the pay plan and to make salaries adjustment to market. But if we can give such a little pay increase, it's outside of the council goal, but is it more beneficial to our employees?
Morgan, before we get past that pay increase, that was 0.7% for all general fund employees, not just PD, right?
Correct.
It would be higher than that if that amount were dedicated just for PD.
Correct.
That's for all employees.
General fund.
General fund.
Yes, sir.
So fire, police, public works, parks, all general fund. And then the enterprise funds would follow suit. They would implement whatever we decide that the general fund can afford. The enterprise funds would follow suit with the same for their employees.
Morgan, can you address health insurance at this point? I think that we want to make sure that we're pretty clear as far as making decisions, as far as city council. A little bit more information on the health insurance.
I may defer to Ms. Marley on that. We did speak briefly that any amount that the council could fund could be used to offset the increase of premiums to the employees. But as far as the detail on that, we can work through that.
This year, when we looked at our budget for insurance, obviously it's too early in our year to have good claim data. We can only operate with our information that we have through June. The insurance works on a calendar year basis, not a fiscal year basis, so I just wanted to point that out. This year, we have 3 large claimants that have claims over $100,000, which total $651,000 in claims. The same time last year, we only had 3 that totaled $474,000, so we are seeing an increase in that. Currently, we have 20 large claimants that represent 43% of our claims, total claims. In order to be able to sustain the increased growth that we're seeing in claims, we have estimated that we would need to take, for the low plan option, single employee, we would go from $16.50 a month to $25 a month. And then every other tier would go up 20%. So that means the highest tier would go up $50 a month, and the lowest would go up $6.53 a month. That's with no increase to the city's contribution. Right now, the city pays $453 per month per employee for the insurance.
How much would the city have to pay, Lisa, if the city covered that increase?
I didn't calculate that because I was told that there wouldn't be any money to do that.
Okay.
If the $322,000 were to be applied to this, that would take a big cut off of the increase to the employees. Absolutely.
That would cut off what?
That would make a big decrease to the increase that we've projected.
But it wouldn't cover it all.
No, it would not.
Do you know of any companies, organizations, or other departments that are paying the additional premium for the employees or asking the employees to kick in a little more?
Many cities that we compare ourselves to, maybe I shouldn't say many, I know there are 3 out of the 13 that pay 100% of the insurance cost, so the employee doesn't have any premium to pay. What I also know is we surveyed our 13 cities yesterday, and the average increase across all of those places was 2% across the board in pay increases, not insurance, but in pay increases. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Charlotte, this isn't a sound survey, but at my house, we have one other person who works, and she's seeing a significant increase in her premium contribution at her job.
And lots of retirees that I'm talking to, and they're getting, their supplemental plans are getting substantial increases, and they're getting no pay increase through their Social Security or their retirement from work if they've got insurance from their retired company.
Right.
So that's why I was asking.
We've been very lucky that we have not increased our premiums in a number of years. And I think it speaks to the good contract that we were able to negotiate initially. And it also speaks to the fact that we are healthier as a result of our wellness program. Now, that's not to say that we don't have those outlier big claims, but what we're seeing in the numbers is that we are healthier because we are taking more prescriptions. And the prescription costs are enormous. And if you look at, television during the news hour, you're going to see lots and lots of commercials for new drugs that are out there. They don't have generics. So when an employee goes and pays their $15 copay for a generic, the city is picking up the difference in that cost. And we have got some drugs that are just super expensive. And so while I think that's what's driving our claims to be so much higher.
I was just wondering, excuse me, does the city have a health savings plan for the employees? One of those plans that they can pay into, and that they don't have to pay taxes on the money, and they can use it for paying for some of the prescriptions?
Yes, we do. We do have that program.
And the major claims, they're for illness and not for injury?
That's correct. They're, without speaking too far out of turn, they're mostly cancer claims.
Thank you.
So we could go in and use that surplus to pay a set amount for every employee. It wouldn't pay the increasing, it wouldn't pay for all the increasing, but every employee within the city would see the same benefit.
That is something actually that the city of Odessa is doing this year. They're just giving a flat dollar amount to every employee, and everybody sees the same increase.
I personally like that.
Well, if you think you're going to go under Medicare and a supplemental and save any money, I can tell you from experience, you don't.
True.
By the way,
goes
happy
up,
birthday
in
come
fact.
Friday.
Huh?
I said, by the way, happy birthday come Friday.
Just another one chalked up.
That's what happens when you start to get my age.
Or Saturday. Saturday.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Lisa? It's a problem, and we're going to have to fight this one again, and there are no answers.
You're right. Thank you.
What are we going to do?
Morgan, give us a magic pill here.
Sure. Just kidding. We do have the opportunity to come back to the council at the August 16th meeting for discussion of the budget and public hearing of the tax levy, and then we're introducing the budget September 6th. And so, of course, this was good timing to have the workshop because as you give us direction, as Mr. Self did, we can sharpen our pencil on that, bring it back to you on August 16th to let you know where those figures fall. For example, if it's a consensus that we put all of it towards health insurance or all of it towards whatever, we have some notes here today that we can report back to you on August 16th to get final details.
So we're not looking at any raises for our employees this year.
Mayor, it really depends on when you say raises. Marty just mentioned a while ago, I know Odessa did that. Of course, they did an amount that each employee received. But again, and that could go toward helping that employee to cover their health insurance. It just really depends on how we want to put this together as well.
One of the key items is that meet and confer contract. And I think if the council as a group is going to say we cannot meet that obligation, I think we want your direction to open that discussion. Is that right, Lisa? Is that how we would do that? We want your direction to open that discussion and develop alternatives with that group, or work to develop alternatives with that group. As well as, now that would be something Lisa and the meet and confer team would work on, but as well as having the budget folks work on alternatives, unless you make a decision today about how you want to allocate that money. But probably a direction from you to work on alternatives for how to allocate that money would be appropriate.
Okay, so right now we have almost $323,000.
Correct.
That's correct.
We've got a health increase that's going to come up where our employees are going to have to pay more just to keep the health insurance. And the police department under meet and confer are asking for $635,000 just for the police department, correct?
Right, that's the cost of this year's contract.
So if we just pay just the police what they're asking for, we are $300,000 in the hole before we even start to give any other city employees anything, and before we deal with our health insurance.
That's correct.
I think it needs to go back to meet and confer. I think they need to understand what our problems are. They need to understand what our budget concerns are, and I would like for them to look at it again. Is that the direction you're looking for?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody agree with me on that?
Yes. I do.
I think we've got a consensus there to take it back to them and explain the reality to them, because there's no money. We're dealing with a great deficit this year. We were able to give some pretty nice raises for the last couple of years, and I'm glad we were able. But this year we're dealing with deficits, and we can't print money.
Well, to me, the reality is salary increases, to me, are based on performance, not cost of living. And I would like to see the city move into only doing evaluations once every 5 years after they have met 5 years of having it done annually, once every 5 years, and establish some goals, or maybe once every 3 years, so that we're not constantly chasing this squirrel around when we have 2 great years, then we've got 3 bad years, up and down, to let us see where we could level off balance-wise. But I agree. I don't see how there's money this year for any salary increases, and I'm very proud of the fact of what we have raised them to. I had asked Lisa to pull a list of all of the job positions and descriptions and the dollar amounts that are paid, and for a police recruit just starting out, a rookie, he gets $39,542 a year, and that's not a bad salary. That's about $600 a year less than what a schools teacher in San Angelo starts at. Yes, I'd love for it to be more, but we just don't have it.
Mayor, we can go back and establish, of course, meetings again with the meet and confer, but also, as we mentioned a while ago, sharpen our pencils, take a look at the health insurance and see what maybe a city plus an employee contribution look like, and just develop other options if those are the two areas that we're going to concentrate on. So we can definitely come back in the August 16th meeting and talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I'm in favor of using all of the money we have to make our budget work. And if there are other monies in any of the other departments, things that are not necessary, I know last year we funded $200,000 to buy computers to put in the cars. If there are any other types in the pickups, so that we could tell from City Hall whether the pickups are being idling or not idling. If there are any more items like that in any of our budgets, this would be the time to look at those budgets and eliminate those to give us some money to work with hospital insurance and also for salaries. So I'd say go back to your departments and have them look at everything.
We've done that, Mayor, but of course, we've done that multiple times, but we can take a look again. I think that with the staff and what through finance we're able to accomplish, considering the reductions that we've seen, especially in sales tax revenues. Yes, we did have a marginal increase in our property tax because of valuation, but we have really sharpened the pencils to reduce our expenditures, but also to make sure that we did have revenues over expenditures left over. But we can definitely go back and take another look at that.
Bill?
Okay, to take up what the mayor was saying on using our vehicles more efficient. Since I've lived here, I noticed a lot of times when you have a crew, say a water leak or something, and you see 4 pickups showing up with 4 people in them. I don't think that's necessary. I think we can make better use of the vehicles that we have rather than one person utilizing one vehicle to go to the same job site, or each individual, 4 showing up in 4 different vehicles. And also, are we going to still be filling positions that become vacant?
Right now, as far as my discussion with the staff, and we had a directors meeting yesterday, and that was to discuss as far as expenditures we have going through the remainder of this year, that we're holding back on any spending and even any positions at this point that are vacant that need to be evaluated again through HR. Only if it's an absolute necessity will we be hiring in those positions, but we want to make sure that we make it to the end of this year as well. The numbers that came in yesterday on sales tax revenues really are about $270,000 lower than we had anticipated. So we need to make our adjustments. Our commitment has been to make sure that revenues are going down, that we're reducing our expenditures so that we don't come out of the hole at the end of the year. And that's exactly what we're aiming for.
And one other point that I would like to make, just so everything is relative here, we did receive $2 million and something additional money on these tax appraisals. So that's an extra $2 million that's coming into the city because of these appraisals. $2 million, what was it, Morgan?
$1.3 million.
$1.3 million more this year than last year,
Mm-hmm.
which is increased revenue over tax appraisals. The point I want to make is that every citizen in this city is dealing with the exact same problems we are in deficits, but they're paying an additional $1.3 million to us. And if our citizens are going to suffer, I think that the city needs to tighten her belt as well.
We agree, Mayor. We definitely do agree with that. That's what we go into these budget workshops, and even leading to the budget workshop, we keep that in mind, and we try to make sure that we eliminate waste and make sure that we're doing only what we need.
These tax appraisals are really hurting our citizens. These increased tax appraisals every year. It's becoming a very serious drain on the citizenry.
Mayor, then we propose we come back then, we address, after we have an opportunity to schedule those meetings, especially with meeting confirm, but also to come back and let you know as far as health insurance, give you your thoughts and ideas, perhaps some options that you may want to take a look at, and we can come back and present at the next city council meeting.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
But do I have consensus on that?
Yes.
Consensus? Okay. Yes, I would like for you to bring some proposals back, and let's look at this again, and let's make some logical choices.
Mayor, if I
based
could.
on reality. Yes, sir.
One of the things that could help is if we knew that you were going to allocate that money in some fashion, they could move ahead, they could take that money and put it somewhere to be moved later on when you make your decision. And that would allow them, I think, Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, to move ahead with all the detail work that you need to do to prepare for the next few meetings. So if you're saying you're going to allocate that 322 in some fashion, then she can put that in a holding area, in an account, to be allocated later when you make the decision how to spend it.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'd like our budget to be balanced. And if we've got this, then we can balance the budget. I don't have a problem with that. Does anyone else?
I think it's the right way to go.
Yeah.
But I think you need to make that decision once you have these conversations with Meet and Confer Group. I mean, once they help us get to that particular spot, that 322 should be allocated in some way so that we're at a zero line.
That's what that's the direction it sounded like you were going.
Yes, sir.
The difficulty is that the Meet and Confer process moves slower than the budget deadlines, which are imminent. And so if she can hold that in an account for the completion of that process and your decision-making process, that allows the budget folks to move forward, meet their deadlines, and then we can step through adequate process to determine how to spend the 322.
I don't have a problem with that. If anyone else does, speak up right now. It's not set in concrete. We have not taken the vote, but to put it in a special account and use it like that, I think would be a wise way to look at it.
And I think we're good. That'll give us time to
That'd give
do
you
it
what
right.
you need.
Yes, sir.
That's it, Mayor.
What else we got?
That's it.
The last thing on our agenda then is a move to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We do have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.